Hi, fourth grade. It's Mrs. Price, and I'm back with your Friday worksheet in your week 7 packet. And this is the last day that we are going to work on personification. And I thought I would start out with this anchor chart just really quickly, just kind of going over all of the figurative language that you have learned. So you've learned similes, metaphors, onomatopoeias, and now personification. And let's just review really quick. So we know that all of these are different types of figurative language, right? A play on language, just making it more fun and playful, gives us great visuals of different things that we're talking about. Similes and metaphors are both comparing two things. The only difference is a simile uses like or as, and a metaphor just compares something directly to the other thing. We didn't talk about hyperboles, but we did talk about onomatopoeias, which are just sound words, right? If you're talking about a cricket, you might say it goes kirk, kirk, or you might, if you're talking about a clock, it might go tick, 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 right? You can think about different words and then think of a sound word to describe them. And then personification is just giving non-human things a human quality. And we've talked about personification the last 2 days. And so we're going to continue to talk about personification today. And we talked about it using these anchor charts yesterday. And remember, these have really great examples. My computer hates me, or the popcorn was jumping out of the bowl. Or I can hear summer vacation calling my name. Some of you might feel that way right now. After the crazy year that we've had, I think it's calling all of our names right now very loudly. It's only a few weeks away. Thank goodness. We're almost to the finish line. You can do it. Okay, so let's come over here and look at our Friday worksheet. Now, you'll notice that your Friday worksheet is just an extension of Thursdays. So I'm actually going to take out our Thursday worksheet because we're going to need that in order to finish this Friday's worksheet, okay? Now on Thursday, they just wanted you to go back to the personifications in the poem and interpret those, right? And so they only asked you to do 6, but we know that we actually had 7. So your Friday worksheet starts out with the very last one. It starts out with, and thus obtain their deserved rest. And I think that's kind of where we were stopping and saying, well, are we talking about the trees or are we talking about the birds? So we're going to go back and read these last 3 lines, and I'm going to help you out with that 7th personification. It says, actually, we're going to start with 4. The lakes go on a journey through the rivers that provide water to the thirsty trees so that they can hold the birds on their arms and thus obtain their deserved rest. And I think we were saying yesterday, is this last personification talking about the birds or the trees? And I really think it's talking about the trees. So you are going to talk about that very last line. What does that mean, thus obtain their deserved rest? Okay, I'm going to let you do that one on your own. And then the rest of this worksheet is just some more, it's just thinking about this poem right here. So number 2 says, which personification did you like the most? Well, you're going to pick which line did you like the most and explain why. If I were to pick, I kind of like, I like the second personification. The birds dance gleefully in the clouds. I like that because birds are always so happy. They're always chirping, and I just love to watch them fly or hop around on the tree branches. Sometimes they'll fly above our deck, our patio outside, and I just love to watch the birds. They just, in my opinion, they're such a happy, joyful little creature. And so I really liked this second personification. But you can choose the one that you like the most and tell us why. What does the title suggest? Well, the title is Amazing Nature. What does that suggest to you? Is nature amazing? I think it is. but you tell me what you think. And it says, what's the first image that came to you after you read the poem? So if an image didn't, like a picture in your mind didn't come to you when you were reading it the first time, I would encourage you to go back and read it again and see what images come to your mind. I know that when I read it, I can see a bright sun shining. And then I can see birds flying through the sky. I'm also seeing a beautiful lake that just looks like it has a glass mirror on the top. It must be a really clear, just calm day. I can see bodies of water. I can see, again, a lake, but then I can also see rivers that are kind of running through the land, and big trees that have birds on their branches, and they're just still, right? That's kind of what I'm seeing. That's the image that I'm seeing, the picture in my mind when I read it. But you tell me what comes to your mind. And it's just the first image. So what's the first image that came to you after reading the poem? You don't have to put all of those images. And can you make a personal connection with the story in the poem? Right? When you talk about a personal connection, well, how do you connect with this? I don't know. Maybe you really like when the sun rises, right? Maybe you're an early morning person and you like to go outside and watch the sunrise. I don't know. How do you connect with this? And then explain your connection. Who is the narrator? Remember, the narrator is the person telling the story, right? Is it a character or is it the poet? I don't know. That's an interesting thought. So go back, maybe reread it again and think, is this a character in the poem or is it the poet? Is it the author? So think about that. That's actually a very interesting question. And then number 9 says, what do you think was the author's purpose when she wrote this poem? Well, remember, author's purpose, right? Every author has a purpose. Before they even write a book, they start to get an idea in their mind. And authors always think, do I want to write this to entertain my audience? Do I want to write this to maybe persuade my audience, right? Do I want to write whatever I'm writing to educate or inform my audience? And when we read poetry, it might be a different purpose. It might be they're just expressing themselves, right? They want to express themselves through poetry. In this case, they've given you a few examples. So do you think the author wanted to just express her feelings about nature? Do you think she wanted to tell a funny story about nature? Or do you think she's trying to teach you a lesson about nature? So if you have to go back, remember that you always, if you're not sure about your answers during reading, during comprehension time, go back and reread it. It's okay if you have to reread it over and over to help you answer the questions. So I'm going to let you answer that. What do you think what do you think her purpose was in writing that? Then, number 10 says, after reading the poem, what can you conclude about the author's feelings and point of view? Well, what can you conclude about the author's feelings? How do you think she feels? And what do you think her point of view is after reading this poem? Well, I might think to myself, how do I think she feels about nature? And then how do I think, what is her point of view of nature? Okay, that's what you can kind of ask yourself as you answer that last question. Then, the very last thing is kind of a fun activity. It says you can write a poem including personifications, and then you can use technology, your Chromebook, to publish your poem. Okay, now we don't use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, but you can use Google Docs, or you can use, I'm going to cross out Word. If you have Microsoft Word and that's what you'd rather use, that's fine. but we use Google Docs. And we don't use PowerPoint, but we use Google Slides. But again, if your parents have Microsoft Word, then this is what you would have to use. And they're pretty much the same thing. Google Slides is fun because you can animate and you can make a presentation, and it's a little bit more a creative way to do a poetry. But even using Google Docs, you can have fun with your fonts and your colors. You can attach pictures. So yeah, write a poem that has personification and send it to me. I would love to see your poetry. And if you have any questions on any of these different questions on Friday, you know where to find me. Okay? Don't overthink it. Just have fun with it. And remember, go back and reread your poem to help you answer the questions. Don't try to guess, and don't get frustrated at yourself. Go back and try to find it within the poem. Okay? All right, guys, have a great week, and have a good weekend, and a good Memorial Day. And we will see you the next week. All right.